Assalamu alaikum, dear family. At this time, could we please stand for prayer? In the manner in which you are most comfortable, follow along silently. Surely I am being turned to thee, O Allah, striving to be upright to he who originated the heavens and the earth, and I am not of the polytheists. Surely my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. No associate has he in this am I commanded, and I am of those who submit. O Allah, thou art the King. There is no God but thee. Thou art my Lord, and I am thy servant, and I have been greatly unjust to myself, and I confess my faults. So grant me protection against all my faults, for none grants protection against faults but thee. And guide me into the best of morals, for none can guide to the best of morals but thee. And turn away from me the evil and the indecent morals, for none can turn away from me the evil and the indecent morals but thee. And O Allah, make Muhammad successful, and make the true followers of Muhammad successful, as thou did make Abraham and the true followers of Abraham successful. For surely thou art praised and magnified. And O Allah, bless Muhammad, and bless the true followers of Muhammad, as thou did bless Abraham and the true followers of Abraham. For surely thou art praised and magnified. Ameen. You may be seated. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, we give praise and thanks to Allah for his coming and appearing to us in the personage of Master W. Fard Muhammad, the long-awaited Messiah of the Christians and the Mahdi of the Muslims. We thank him for traveling those 9,000 miles to come, seek and save that which was lost, and that's the black man and woman in the hells of North America, and in truth, all of fallen humanity. But he came for us first, and we thank him for spending 3.5 years with us so that he might find one that he could deposit his mind into, and that one would be radiated with God's mind and come after the rest of us. And the man that he chose was a Georgia-born black man. We say that he was, and is his wise choice. He was born Elijah Poole, but because of the work that he did with us and is doing on us, they say he had the hardest and has the hardest job that any man has ever had in the annals of history of raising a dead man and woman. And the one that I speak of, though he was born Elijah Poole, but because the work that he was doing among us, he became known as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I did not meet Master Fard Muhammad, and I certainly didn't meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but the man that walks among us today that is causing me and each one of us that will lend our ear to that beautiful teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It causes us to fall deeper in love with those two, and also with this teaching that was custom made for you and I. And the man who is doing that, he's bold, he's courageous, he does not bend when he does not want to bend, he doesn't laugh when it's not funny, and he certainly doesn't scratch where he doesn't itch. He's our leader, our teacher, our guide, our illustrious leader, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. All praise is due to Allah, and it is in those three holy and righteous names I greet you all once again, dear family, with the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak. All praise is due to Allah. Once again, I am humbled to be before you, the people of God, and I'm so thankful to each one of you for having a spirit of submission. And how do I know that? Because you submitted to the check procedure when you came in. See, that's a beautiful spirit, that you would humble yourself to a law that you might not be in agreement with. However, you did it anyway, which means, as Master Fard Muhammad told the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, brother, there's enough of the original materials in you that I can work with. Well, you have enough of the original materials in yourself because you have a submitting spirit, which means you're open to new ideas and a new way of thinking, which comes from God himself. So thank you, dear family, for submitting to that. Thank you once again for being here. You got here on time. As the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said, he used to sing in the church as a little boy, it's that song that I woke up this morning, I woke up on time. And I woke up this morning and I woke up in my right mind. Woo, that's saying something right there. Because, there are people out there that are losing it as we speak. This world that we're in, we're walking in the valley of the shadow of death, and it's tearing people apart, not just mentally or physically, but spiritually. We're being destroyed because of what we see coming to this world, because of her evils done to the people of God. And I'm going to close it out with this very quickly. In the study group on Friday, Self-Improvement, the Basis for Community Development, question number 3 asks, very profound question, do you believe that God came for you and me in the hells of North America? Do you believe that? And then the question is asked, why would he come for the black man and woman in North America? There are black people all over the planet, but what makes us so special? Just something to lay pressure on our minds. But if you would really like to know more about it, I would say tune in on Fridays, come into the self-improvement study course, and this is called the Class of God. Why is that? He said he wants to make each one of us a God. But you can't become a God if you don't study. How do I know that? Have you ever seen the picture of Master Farrakhan Muhammad? The only picture that was allowed to be taken of him, he's doing what? He's reading a book, which is a message to you and I. So we cracked the code on the message and said, well, wait a minute, I have to become a student if I want to be God-like. And God doesn't have gender. No. The definition of God doesn't say a man with, doesn't say a woman. It says anything that is done with force and power. Our mothers did a God-like act, didn't they, brothers? Didn't they send y'all sisters? Yeah, y'all know what I'm saying. If you have children, we came in, that was force and power. Woo! So the first introduction to God was mama. First doctor, first nurse, first teacher, mama. So sisters, y'all have a very important role in this whole scheme of things. Brother, that's not negating us. We just have to, once we marry one, and we get one, we have to work hard to maintain this womb up here, because it'll feed that other womb that's going to produce that child. And the Honorable Louis Farrakhan told us that in the lecture series he did called How to Give Birth to a God. But if you want to know more about why God chose us, I can't teach it, but I could, but it's not my turn. Come on out Friday. If you want to register, log into study.noi.org, and they'll send you the assignment, and you can be prepared to come into the class. Well, we're in a class right now, and I would say put on your thinking caps, take out your pens, your pads, whatever you have. Get ready to write down, because something is going to come across this rostrum from our brother that is going to be profound. It's going to put weight, pressure on your mind, and you might not remember it. But write it down. That way you can entertain it and research it once you leave, right? So at this time, the brother who's going to do that to our minds this morning, he's our Delaware Valley Student Regional Minister, a hard-working soldier, always on his post. Let's bring him on with a warm, loving round of applause. Student Minister, our Regional Minister, Rodney Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, the One God, to whom all praise is due, the Lord of the worlds, we thank Almighty God, who is the revealer of all truth and the sender of all prophets, of whom we make no distinction. We thank him for Moses and the Torah. We thank him for Jesus and the gospel. And we thank him for Muhammad and the revelation of the Holy Quran. As a student of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad's life-giving message under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I can't thank God enough for his coming, intervening in our affairs, as it was prophesied and predicted that he would come, seeking that which was lost. He came to us in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, to whom praise is due forever. We did not know to expect his coming, but it was written that he would come. Those in the East felt that we should just lean on what they had in the East. And so they saw no need for his coming. Those in the West who have lied in religion and hidden from the original people the truth about God and the truth of themselves did not want to see his coming. And so from the East and from the West, whether it was we didn't see a need or whether we did not want to see his coming, he came nevertheless, unobserved and undetected. And we thank him for coming in the person of Master Fard Muhammad on schedule, raising his servant and then moving to the background and using his servant to make him known. And as the student of them both said, the efficacy of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's wisdom is undeniable. And so we thank Allah for the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the exalted Christ now, a Mahdi now, in terms of the role that he plays in the scheme of our being resurrected. We thank Allah for him, and I am eternally indebted to them both for their student, servant, and apostle, our leader, teacher, and guide today, the Messiah today, the role that he must play, because the world is waiting on him. There's a demand for him, not as an ordinary man, but as a Messiah. We thank Allah for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so in their names, I extend to you once again, as is our distinct privilege to do, the greeting words of peace, Assalamu alaikum. We also say during this time, Ramadan Mubarak. Yeah, a blessed fast. Years ago, when I came into the Nation of Islam, we only fasted in the month of December because fasting is a prescription. And when you take a prescription, it's because you've been examined and an analysis is taken of what you suffer from. What you suffer from may not be what the person down the hall is suffering from. And so you don't take their medicine, you take the medicine that's prescribed for you. Well, are y'all real Muslims? Well, you need a prescription no matter what Muslim you are, what country you in, right? But all of us are not suffering from the same thing. You suffering even though you have a Quran and have a knowledge of it. We had no knowledge that a Quran ever existed. And many of us lived in this land and did not know the name Allah. But we were drunken by the commercializing of Christmas. And as we showed last week, if you count back from Easter, a man that lived 33 and a half years, you would not get a birth date of December the 15th as the birth date of Jesus Christ. But what we can get of December the 25th is that in ancient Rome, 274 AD, that Aurelius determined that December the 25th would be a holiday because of the vernal equinox. And that as the days got shorter and shorter, and they were sun worshipers, the shortness of the day showed the lessening of the power of the sun. And so they saw a declining and a death of the sun. But on the 24th of December, according to the winter solstice, the vernal equinox, the sun begins to creep back out. Just a few moments more than it did from the day before. So they saw a rebirth of the sun. And so December the 25th became a birthday. And so Constantine took the sun, S-U-N, and the sun, S-O-N, and decided, this is going to be the birthday of Jesus celebrated in the Roman Empire. All in the Roman Empire did not agree with it. Rome was split up in two parts, a western part of the empire, where you had the Roman Catholic Church, and the eastern part of the Roman Empire was the Greek Orthodox Church. And so all of Rome was rightfully known in its correct title, the Greco-Roman Empire, right? And there's just a lot to go into on that, but anybody that took 300 years to decide who a man was didn't really know him. And at best, they were dealing with guesswork to determine who he was. But one thing we know, they felt that God was in his person, though he was in human form. And we say God came in the person of a man, and people will look at you and say, well, you must be crazy. Well, then I was born into a crazy world, because you was already believing God was in the person of a man. You just pointed to a man that was 2,000 years ago. We pointing to a man that's alive today. A man 2,000 years ago, long since dead. He can't make no demands on you. You can take his faith and design it any way you want to, but a living man won't let you make that design. You got to follow his. I'm thankful for the life-giving teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And even those that will not receive it right now, all scripture shows us in the end, everybody's going to receive it. The Quran says the losers will say, surely I am of the losers. How would you even know that? You only know you lost a game because the other team got more points than you got. They outscored you, right? People watching the 76ers with that last shot in the overtime, and they kept showing that on the news, but no matter what, that last shot counted. And when it counted, they said, we don't care if it's 1 point. They won the game, is that right? And the other team was surely of the losers. Well, the loser is made to bear witness to his own loss in the end, and they cry out, would that I had taken away with the messenger. How could you know that the way with the messenger was right except you tried another way? And that way brought you into the same valley of all those that had lost. Last week we were talking about the crucifixion, and we could not get through with it because it's a big subject. We learned that crucifixion, though practiced in Rome, didn't start with the Romans. And when we talk about Romans, remember that the Romans never became extinct. What do you mean, Brother Rodney? In other words, the Romans never died out. Well, where'd they go? Where are they? They changed their name to Italians. But these are the Romans who are conquerors. And what they did in order to conquer the hearts of people that were leaning toward Jesus as a result of the preaching of Paul and the rising up again of the disciples, to capture the people's heart, they had to conquer religion. They had to get the narrative and the upper ground, the higher ground on the discussion of who God is, what God is, and who is his real Christ and or Messiah. But last week we talked about the scripture where it says, smite the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. We found that sheep are one of the only animals, if they're left to themselves, like they found this one sheep, I don't know how many pounds of wool had grown on it, but it can't cut the wool off of itself. It was almost hidden behind all the wool, and it was so much wool on it, it couldn't even move. The sheep need somebody to shear the wool off of them. You follow? Sheep have no means of protecting themselves. When they're attacked by predators and that, the sheep is just a victim. And that's all they are. It ain't a fight and the sheep lost. The sheep don't even fight. Even when sheep are slaughtered, they found that the next sheep in line can see the one in front of them slaughtered and will not pull back on you and fight you to say, I don't want to suffer the same fate. They walk right into the same fate. Black people are sheep. You might not like to be called that. We have been victims in this land. Somebody walk with me through this. And there's never been a thing of, well, black people fought hard, but they lost the war. We ain't never fought. And the only fight that we have is to get the same enemy that has put the iron foot of oppression on us to give his stamp of approval for our fight. We don't consider our fight to have legitimacy unless the white man puts his stamp of approval on it. That's not a fight. That's watching Paul Robeson go down, Dr. King go down, Malcolm X go down, everybody, and we walk the same line. Just like the sheep, there's no pullback. I don't want that to happen to me. We're walking the same path into the lion's den. Smite the shepherd, and the sheep will scatter. That is the role that the U.S. government has played in their relationship to us. If a black institution comes up strong, get the leader. And if you get the leader, the organization, the institution will start falling apart. Crucify them. Now, crucifixion as a practice that started with the Phoenicians and the Romans, and not the Romans, but the Persians, and then the Romans adapted it. Though you were going to be nailed to the cross, you were made to carry it. And while you were carrying it, because the people around you that are watching you move down the aisle with the cross on your shoulders that you're going to be nailed to, they would spit on you and everything, which shows that a propaganda campaign against you had already been afoot. Nobody feels bad that you got the cross. Everybody feels justified in condemning you as you walking with the cross, because they have used propaganda to convince the public that you deserve what the hell you get. So it was with Jesus that Palm Sunday, they were lifting him. By Friday, they were saying, crucify him. Right. The government went after SCLC. As long as they could domesticate it and make it just fight for being able to have public accommodations. What's a public accommodation? I can use the same toilet that my oppressor uses. I mean, it comes down to that. I can get a hamburger and a cup of coffee at the same place. And it wasn't that they refused our money before, they just didn't want you sitting in there with them. I can move in a white neighborhood. You always could live in one long as you was the maid, butler, or gardener. Huh? You could live there. They say, what's that nigga doing in our neighborhood? Oh, that's the Miss Jones gardener. Don't bother him. He's all right. That's Mammy. She comes and cooks for so-and-so and so-and-so. So you can go in there as long. Just don't move and have a house like we got one. But then Dr. King said he began to see a facile connection between the war in Vietnam and the struggle that he and others were having in America. And so he felt that silence, like Judas, was an act of betrayal against the American people. So he broke ranks with the civil rights leaders and began to criticize the war in Vietnam. Julian Bond, a chair emeritus of the NAACP, he had run for state representative in Georgia, and he won. But because he was against the war in Vietnam, they physically, after he won, wouldn't let him come and take his seat in government in Georgia. By 1968, the Democratic Convention was selected to be in Chicago. Julian Bond was a rising voice in the Democratic Party among black people, one of the most articulate of our struggle. If you lived in the 60s, you would know that morning news programs, you didn't see Jesse Jackson, you didn't see many of the faces, you definitely didn't see Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, and others on those programs. But the one person you did see on Face the Nation and other programs was Julian Bond, because he could articulate the black struggle to white America, because basically those morning Sunday news programs, those news programs were only appealing to white Americans. So Julian Bond, by opposing the war, they scandalized him. Are you listening to me? Nationally, they scandalized him so they could scare away any support coming from the civil rights community. With no support or money to get him and his comrades to Chicago to be a part of that convention, it was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that reached in his pocket and paid that man's way and his delegation's way to the city. And he gave him cash because he said a check might get you in trouble with Elijah Muhammad's name on the check. But they worked to take it apart. Any church that rose up, that had a pastor that was controversial, like Reverend Cleves out of Detroit, the Church of the Black Messiah. I had heard once, I read somewhere where Mother Tynetta as a girl had belonged there in Detroit before she came to the Nation of Islam, which would make sense, as revolutionary as she was. I don't know, I only read it in one place, so don't quote me on it, because I don't know for a fact. But any mosque, any organization that proved to be trouble for the U.S. government, they always went after the shepherd so that the sheep would scatter. We are no different. If they're tired of us, they'll look for the shepherd, the one who either founded it and brought us together, or the one charismatic enough to bring us all together. They got to find a way to tear it down. They go after the shepherd, and they always tend to make the sheep scatter. When I first came into the Nation of Islam, they were looking to take apart the black Hebrew Israelites. And I never forget what they did in court. In court, they wanted to prove one point. They knew that the membership of the black Hebrew Israelites in Chicago were all in the courtroom to show support for their leadership. And what they did in the court, they had tapped the phones of many of the members. And so they started playing the conversations in court. And when different people that were sitting in there begin to hear how this brother and this sister really thought about them, because they had pulled up. Now, the conversations weren't pertinent to the case. They knew what they were doing in the courtroom. They were taking the private conversations of one member to the other about another member and that. And by the time they got finished, man, they had thrown that community into a tizzy. They have always sent agents into our organizations. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, now we have ample proof that agents were sent into the nation, some to work themselves high up into the labor of the nation for the sole purpose of wreaking havoc And the believer should always remember that if you are a believer in God, Allah will send havoc-making angels on your enemies. You're not left alone. They got agents, but we got some. I'm only bringing this up to show not so much how they take an individual and crucify him. Crucify in the informal definition doesn't mean just getting nailed to a wooden cross. Crucify means to criticize severely. And a person that goes through severe public criticism is said to be crucified. The problem is not just with crucifixion, but when it comes to the figure of Jesus or the Messiah, the crucifixion or the public criticism of them begins to offend many of the people that are supposed to be with him. The scripture says they become offended. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said once that the history of Jesus, at that time, there were two men and a people. And last week I was showing you how Jesus was on the cross and was supposed to have said, Father, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? But no servant of God ever thought God ran out on them. How could the lesser prophets who never accused God of turning his back on them only end up with a man who fulfills the prophets turn his back on God? Or at least think God turned his back on him. No, that's us. And when we get nailed to the cross as a community and you start reading things in the newspaper that are not true about you, not as an individual, but as a community, you have to be careful that you don't get offended. I wouldn't be in this mess if it weren't for Farrakhan. I wouldn't be going through this. I wouldn't have got fired from my job if it had not been for Farrakhan. The FBI could go to a couple of your neighbors and just ask some questions about you. Pretty soon all the neighbors are saying, I'm staying away from them. I ain't going to no meeting they invite me to. We wouldn't be the first organization that the FBI did that to. All of that is part of wreaking havoc in the life of believing people to get you to come out of a life of belief. They're not going to leave us alone till we're destroyed. And God is not going to leave them alone till they're destroyed. Already, they're unraveling. They're coming apart already. As the Honorable Louis Farrakhan preached, the unraveling of a great nation. He said to us in his letter going into that Savior's Day in Detroit that the unraveling of a great nation is not just the great nation known as the United States of America, but even the nation of Islam is unraveling in faith, because somebody is trying to shake our faith now. They started with Jesus at the beginning. The Bible says John baptized him, and then after the baptism, the Spirit, not the devil, the Spirit led Jesus into the wilderness. Why? Because he had to be tested. What was Satan's real test to him? Well, jump off of something, and it's written that the angels won't even let your feet touch the ground. I want you to use your power, but he wouldn't use it. Take these stones and turn them into loaves of bread. Don't suffer. In other words, you the man. You ain't supposed to suffer. You're the man. Ain't nobody going to let you get killed. That's why later on, when Jesus says the Son of Man got to be turned over, that's like saying the police are going to come after me and arrest me. And Peter jumps out, not you. You won't go through anything like that. And the first thing Jesus said to him, get thou behind me, Satan. Because it's only Satan that's saying I'm not supposed to suffer. But already Isaiah the prophet saw him coming and said, by his stripes we're healed. He saw a suffering servant. But we think because of this celebrity type world, that when you get to a status where everybody knows you, you don't suffer nothing. So we can't just talk about the crucifixion of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or the crucifixion of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. What about our crucifixion? As a community, as we said before, crucify is to criticize one severely. Look what John says in the 7th chapter. And then Jesus said unto them, this is important, my time is not yet come. That means he's in control of events. That's not a man that something's just happening to him. He knows what's supposed to happen, and he's in control of it. That means he's on God's timetable, not the timetable of his enemy. Don't care what the FBI want to do. Years ago, when the Cold War was said to be over under Ronald Reagan, and 100 espionage agents from the United States of America were pulled out of Eastern Europe and Russia and places and brought back, they were assigned to get Louis Farrakhan. You remember that? And the minister said, he read where they said, in a few days we'll have him blown out of the water. A few days was their timetable. Farrakhan is still here. You still blowing, but our leader and teacher is not blown out of the water. Because he's not on your timetable. His time has not come yet. He said, my time has not yet come, but your time is already. We're already in our time. And we can't walk around and say, oh, wait a minute, my time is not yet. You in your time. And the Quran says, and you'll say, try me not, surely into trial. You have already entered. We're not waiting on a trial. We're in it right now. Listen to the Messiah plead with us. Do everything you can to take this fast. Work on yourself, because while you're in a work of repentance, God would never destroy you. He would never place you under a heavy chastisement. Just listen to what he's saying. Your time is already. He goes on. Look at this. The world cannot hate you, but me it hateth. Because why would he even say that? The world cannot hate you. Because something's going to happen, and that's what you're going to think that world does. But you got to remember that God hates this world. Don't go by what this world said. God so loved the world. He loves the world that he wants to bring into existence. If he loved this world, then when Pilate is talking to Jesus, Jesus would not say, my kingdom is not of this world. He's already looking at a new world. The world is not the earth. The world is a whole sphere of mental activity. The world that Jesus wants to bring in, sport and play won't have the place in our life that it's got right now. The world you in right now, somebody could tell you about 76 quintillion miles is the diameter of the universe. 76 surah of the Quran is called the man. You worried about the 76ers. Huh? Because the sphere of activity, he got control of that. He deals with the draft picks. We don't know how God has a draft pick. God will take some of the most unsuspecting people and they become the most faithful servants. Huh? Just think about it. Saul was one of the worst persecutors against the believers of Jesus. But on road to Damascus, he was blinded and said, Saul, why dost thou persecute me? And Paul became one of the greatest preachers of Jesus Christ. He went and got somebody in opposition. Look at Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Allah looked at Umar, who wanted to kill him. The only thing stopped him from going to kill Prophet Muhammad, somebody told him his sister and her husband had joined the faith. By the time they told him, you know, your sister and your brother-in-law, they over in the mosque with Muhammad. That distracted him. The history says he jumped on both of them. He beat both of them up. Beat his sister up and her husband. He's a strong man. Huh? And when he saw some of the verses that his sister had down before the Holy Quran had been put together, he was so moved and touched. Instantly, Umar became a follower of Muhammad. He raised his sword. Oh, he was a menace to the Quraysh. He threatened them. He killed some of them for Muhammad. Same man that was going to kill Muhammad. Allah took that. Khalid bin Walid, a great helper to the Quraysh, a great general, fierce and fearless. And Allah, during the truce, it gave Khalid bin Walid a chance to look at what he was fighting. And when he looked at what Muhammad was preaching and what he was fighting, he then became the sword of Allah. So the draft pick of God, we would never draft somebody that God drafted. Well, anyway, if the world hateth the Messiah, he said, they hate me because I testify of it. That its works are works of evil. That's how a man shall be known. He ain't going to be known by what he call himself. A man going to be known by his works. Yeah. Yeah, we look more at what you do than what you say. That makes sense, doesn't it? See, the praise comes first. Because on Palm Sunday, they had nothing but praise for Jesus. And if you walking with Jesus, you say, man, we got it going on now. Everybody like us. Well, by Friday, you wonder what the hell happened. We was winning the popularity contest. Yeah, man, everybody's for us. Million Man March. Everybody's with us. Ain't nobody got no, even the complainers came to the march. Come on, somebody. Riding high. Makes you doze off on your enemy. People start, courting it and, well, let's talk with Minister Farrakhan. Let's talk with this one. Let's talk with that one. And let's give a proclamation here and there. They did the same thing to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They fought the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for decades. Then came up with a dinner, Muhammad's Day. Honored him from all over. And you know how scared the Negro is. He don't want to be around Malcolm X. He don't want to be around Mr. Muhammad. But when he see the white man is willing to do it, that's the stamp of approval of the person. Now he show up at the dinner. He got something to say about Muhammad's work. Go back and read what happened in 74 and that in Chicago. The praise always come first. And Minister Farrakhan started pointing out how top laborers start falling asleep on the enemy and got to thinking that these proclamations and things was real. Well, he really changed. He really feel good about us now. They ain't never going to feel good about you and you got a different God than they have. Never going to feel good about you and you got a God that's charting out an independent course for you and you don't want to be a slave no more. They'll never be sincere about it, and you're giving them back their name and their religion and their white woman and everything, and you're embracing your own woman, lifting her as a queen, standing up like a real man, shouldering yourself with self-determination. I don't care how many trophies they give you. They don't want you to take that step. So some of the white men, the minister said, that were praising Mr. Muhammad, they ended up on the cover of the Muhammad Speaks newspaper. Then the Negro got mad. Like the nation is sold out, but the minister said, the messenger told him, brother, when a man is honoring you, it's disrespectful not to show him some respect when they're showing you that. Don't ever let white folks be more civilized than you once you have learned civilization. Yeah, they started praising first. But you're never supposed to get fooled by proclamations, certificates of honor and appreciation. It's all right to receive things, but don't ever think folks have really changed their mind about you. Not if you want to be free. Not if you want to be independent. And so Jesus told them when he came into Jerusalem, riding on that see, you're riding in on a donkey that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said represent the masses of our people. Yes, basically the uneducated masses of our people that are really carrying this country. And there'll be a young colt, which the minister said, he said represent young black professionals, university students. See, when the minister did the Million Man March, the masses, they came by the millions. And many of those were students and young black professionals that came because they took a survey of the levels of work that many of them at the Million Man March had taken, that they had, as a profession. And you'll see that the donkey and the colt was there. The other black leaders that showed up, they only showed up because Farrakhan was already riding the donkey. It was a foregone conclusion that none of them helped him to bring 2 million men to Washington, D.C. He did it in the name of his God. They got on the mic talking about, we brought these people in there. If you brought them, how come they're not with you now? Go ahead. Good question. That's right. No, you got to get the credit where it's due. So the minister said, after the messenger was lifted like that and people started going to sleep, the FBI realized that, man, you attacked the mosque, you only helped them. So they started looking at second line leadership. They left Chicago alone and went out in the field. Let's get our agents into the different mosques and start wreaking havoc on those ministers and laborers. That's what they did. That's what they're doing right now. They found that if we can unsettle the leadership at the local level, it has a negative impact on the membership. I'm going by what J. Edgar Hoover said. In other words, the mindset of the followers is not strong. And it definitely is not strong when the man of God is not with you. When Malcolm X broke with the nation, they had hoped that many would come against the nation and that the nation would fall apart. But the minister said the believers, their love for one another at that period, and their unity with one another made the nation not only survive, but it made progress during that time. See, love for each other and our unity is the only way out. So, if betrayal, which I said last week, answered in a 24-hour period, 25 Old Testament predictions were fulfilled within 24 hours. So the betrayal is the trigger. That means a Judas. But what we have not done, whether we in Christianity, Islam, or whatever, we've never really studied the profile of a Judas. What makes a Judas? One thing we know, when Judas was recruited, when he wrote his letter and recited, he wasn't a devil. He came in the ranks, he was all right. He became a devil, the minister said. Now, what circumstances and forces operate on you as a believer once you come in that ultimately will turn you into a devil while you sitting in the ranks of the fruit of Islam? What forces could work on you? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad had already said, Islam will bring out of us everything, both good and evil. So if it's going to bring everything, then what's not so good got to be mastered, conquered, and checked. And we're the only ones that can do that. That's what makes Friday night study group so important. Yes, sir. Come on. Because it's a self-improvement study course. Not looking at somebody else, you're looking at yourself now. Remembering the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that the greatest source of menace to his work was not even Mecca or the government or Rome, but his greatest source of trouble wasn't even the hypocrites and the agents. His greatest source of trouble, he said, was the weak-minded believer. If the believer's mind was stronger, the hypocrite could not gain ground. If the believer's mind was stronger, you can send all the agents you want in. But their mind is so strong to the walk of righteousness that it checks everybody. So when Mr. Yaqub, who wasn't alive by the time he made his made man, was already assigned through literature and that, how to come back amongst us and raise hell, the minister said the original people at that time, and wait, let's stop this right now. Don't look at some African in the forest and think that Mr. Yaqub used that person to make the devil. The devil was made out of some of the wisest black people. They never went with Shabazz. These people, they stayed among the original people. Yaqub on that ship with 59,999 and him making 60,000, that wasn't white folks, that was black people dissatisfied. Come on now. That was some disappointed black, get me on the ship. Shoot, I'll leave, we'll go over here and start our own mosque. He said, yeah, we're going to set our own thing up. Steal the nationals so we can set up our own meetings. Huh? The full plan ain't been exposed yet. What's going to happen on the island of Pelan once you get there? People, they started unraveling before they got to Pelan. Y'all want to hear about this? They start coming apart. You talking about unraveling. Mr. Muhammad said he started looking on the ship. Everybody wasn't suitable, so he started throwing them overboard. Well, he took 59,000. They got on the ship, but we don't know how many got to the island. Because he didn't give us a number how many got thrown overboard. When they stood you up for inspection, they wasn't looking for what we looking for now. Then he got there, and two things he didn't do. He didn't tell them he had a meeting with them. So he started out lying. He had a meeting. There was an agreement. They thought they just did a walkout. But there was an agreement. The other thing he didn't tell him he got some money. According to Mr. Muhammad, he got enough money to last for 25 years so they could build something. Mr. Muhammad said, first mosque meeting, the first thing he said, look what they did to us. They kicked us out. Now that really gets you angry. That gets your dandruff up, don't it? Yeah, he got them all angry and everything. See, so, you don't start out being a devil. Just an ordinary black person got a little dissatisfaction. The minister said, we always had dissatisfaction. We always knew about dissatisfaction. What we have never had was a devil. So now we're going to make somebody to really deal with your hurt and your disappointment. Now, when you say, well, brother, you just supposed to be teaching the white man is the devil. Well, I could do that if Mr. Muhammad hadn't kept saying, you could turn devil overnight. He wasn't even talking to white people. Damn. The minister said, why couldn't you just turn devil during the day? Because see, when the day sun is gone, a false light comes up to make you think it's the sunlight. But it's a false light because it ain't generating light from itself. Why? Because it's not connected with God. Wow. So it's a false light, and it's leading us down the path. You know, one thing that the moonlight does, the minister always reminds us, it matures the plant. When the plant is dealing with photosynthesis, building according to the light of the sun, once the sun is gone, it's the moonlight that matures the plant. You ever know when it's bright and sunny and everything's going all right, everybody look faithful. But when the light is gone, see, and you ain't got nothing but the moonlight now, this is when you really mature in faith. You grow in faith more through difficulty and struggle than you do having a good time. Huh? That's why the Quran says difficulty is ordained. The word ordained is built up into the word ordinary. We think a difficulty is something unordinary, but it's ordinary to make a God. To become a God is to solve a problem. You know, and what we do in life and what makes us succeed in life, it deals with what kind of problem we're willing to solve. The greatest problem on our planet today, among human beings today, what do we do about the so-called Negro in North America? A lot of people have been messed over. A lot of people have been deceived, but nobody's been messed over, deceived, and destroyed the way we have been. Our condition said we could never be retrieved. Our condition said we could never be restored. Our condition showed we could never be built up into anything that would amount to anything. we got to get them together. Man, that's an impossibility. But as we said last week, impossibility with man sets the stage for God to come. Because nothing is impossible to God. We're only here because God has come. We're here because of Louis Farrakhan, who exists today. He only existed the way that he exists because God has come. He's only a Messiah today because God has come. So Judas turned devil. There's all kind of reasons why, but see, the question really becomes, what were the circumstances that take a good, honest person just trying to be righteous? What got you so angry? What annoyed you so? What offended you, as the scripture said? Because it said once they were offended, many walked with him no more. So the minister, I hear his call, to get us, because what will happen once we on the cross? Hands that used to carry the Final Call newspaper. Hands, that work on the building of a nation, now they're nailed, you can't even move them. We were already told a time come when a man can't work. Feet that used to drill, learning the repetition of the gods. Feet that were marching toward freedom and self-determination, nailed. Can't move no more. Stripped of your uniform. Not the regular MGT and FOI uniform, but the uniform of your own righteousness. And the glory of God that's made to shine on you, you don't look the same no more. And people are really messed up if you go back to the world. A man was getting, they used to call it cheap term, sauced, but he was drinking. I don't know if he had Johnny Walker with water back or whatever, but he was drinking. And they said two sisters, nation had gone down. It's around 1976. Well, they had spent years in the nation, so they really didn't have no other clothing. So they kind of had on some of the stuff they wore when they was in the nation. And I guess they was up boogalooing and dancing in the club. That man sobered up. There's a real account in Chicago. Because once people see you going, a certain way, the first thing is to get you to resist and get you not to accept Farrakhan. Don't walk on it. But once you get in it, and many of you came in the nation and you had people that you used to run with, they'll try to stop you first. You've been with them all their life. They ain't never mentioned religion. Now all of a sudden you join with Farrakhan and they know something about religion. Huh? Am I telling the truth? Yeah. But you know what'll happen? Once they see you come in, and a year or two pass, and they see you walking with the con. Go try to go back and get some reefer from them or something. Somebody slap it. No, don't let them do that. Because they glad to see you make it because you a sign that they can make it. And they want to see you up. The last thing they want to see you do is fall back. Because when they see you fall back, they'll feel like they don't have a chance. When the scandal starts, for us, it'll be in the Philadelphia Inquirer. Tribune will follow suit. Don't be talking about, well, it's a black newspaper. It's black people there. Huh? Philadelphia Magazine and all of them, they'll start. It'll look unbelievable to you. It'll be so irrational, but Satan is irrational. Yes, sir. Yeah. We're just struggling to hold on to belief in God. Satan know God. Yes, sir. Satan don't have to believe. Go ahead. He knows him and still opposes him. Yes, right. Respite me to the day they are raised. Oh, I'm respited to the day they are raised. Well, I'm coming after them. I'm going to mess your work up with them. That's an insane person. If I knew God the way Satan knew him, man, we'd be really taken off. The minister said, big fields await the wide awake man to work out. And he said the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told him, brother, the wide awake man is the man that knows God. He ain't just a believer in God. He know him. I know he exists. You can't even talk me out of the fact that God exists. Because I'm not, if you a believer, you can end up disbelieving. That's why you got disbelievers. You don't have disknowers. People that knew and then fell out of knowing. No. That's why you ain't gonna be left alone on just saying you believe and not be tried. Why are you trying me, God? Because I'm gonna keep trying you in your belief till you leave belief and come into knowing that I'm God. I came to North America to make myself known, not just believed. Jesus got stripped like other people that's crucified. So your reputation, the prestige, the respect, and you're always stripped down to where your private parts are showing while you're up on the cross. They want you humiliated. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Your private parts are showing to mean they go into your private life, find out what you're doing. The agents have already sent people in to do criminal things so they can make the nation look like a criminal organization. Didn't you hear it in the swan song? The minister says some of you already are using the believers in the different things. He's already watching them, right? There was a wound in Jesus' side, and the blood was gushing out. See, that's the life of us. It's seeping out of us right now as we sitting. And what happens when it goes out? You know, the minister said it's really that when the blood goes out, you start feeling the cramps and the fatigue sets in because lifeblood is not flowing through you no more. What he said, that's coming from the pain of you looking back at all the years of your sacrifice. See? And ultimately, he said, it's finished. And when you think it's finished, we just go back to a life of living individually for ourselves. Because we think it's all over when really it's just beginning. The crucifixion wasn't the end of the story. The resurrection is the end of the story. Yes, we go down. But we go down to prepare us for coming up. The nation would go down. It did that. The messenger said it would rise again, never to fall again. If the nation is made up of people and we're those people, we would never fall again. If we do what he said, righteousness will sustain us. Just do right. Do your best to live right. Work as a community. Because a life with Minister Farrakhan, who ain't made to think just for himself. The messenger said, brother, I want you to think for the whole. He loves us as believers, but he's made in a way where he's not made to just think for us. He's got to think for the whole. He's got to think for people whether you're a registered member of the nation or not. Ultimately, his breast was expanded, the chest cavity, because the heart is bigger to reach out for humanity as a whole. Oh, this is a big work. The Negro mind always talked about, I love everybody. If you walk with Farrakhan, you'll get to love everybody. But you can't love nobody if you don't love your own black self. You got to start here. You got to work from here where we are. The minister has made 3 world friendship tours to show us that the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are true. He said, brother, God has already gone out ahead and made friends for you. Here the minister go to countries with people who've never seen him before. They're in tears. They're ready to give him their throne. He's in Russia with white Muslims, and if you read the Theology of Time, the messenger said there's some whites who are Muslims that's got a spirit unlike anything you can find in the entire Muslim world. This same Putin and the Russians that are fighting the Ukrainians, they clicked their guns on our leader and teacher and our security team and that, and it was those white Muslims that said, we're ready to go down. And they told the minister, we can do it right here. Against these, we don't care nothing about no guns being cocked and triggered and that. We believe in Allah. Would that we had some soldiers like that right here in the fruit of Islam. Because we're going to need that kind of spirit. Brother, you get killed talking like that. I can get killed getting carjacked. From what I'm looking at, many people dying. Hell, I'm playing Russian roulette when I come out on the streets of Philadelphia. It ain't a matter of I'm going to die, at least with the coming of Master Farrakhan Muhammad. Raising the servants that he has and this light that has come to us, I got an option of how I want to die. Do I die like a punk? Because I got an option to die like a man. And nobody with any real sense wants to die. But like, as Dr. King said once, you get to a point where you find that there's some things so precious, so eternally true, they're worth dying for. And he said, if you show me a man that ain't found one thing he's willing to die for, he said, that's a man that's not fit to live. He won't even die for his woman to protect her. He won't die for his family to protect them. He won't die for his people and the cause that they have. He won't die in the name of his God and that. What kind of person is this? This is just a male. He's a chromosome. Where's the soul and the spirit? That's why you got to join the fruit of Islam. To learn something about what it really is to be a man. You got to have a soul. Black is not just color, it's consciousness. Why is it consciousness, Brother Rodney? Because you got some people black and they don't realize. That's you black, man. You have to wake up to that fact. And we can't wake up on our own. That's why the alarm clock of the final call has been hitting your door. Alarm clock just shakes you. You say, dang, is it that time? Yes, it's that time. And we tell you what must be done. You must get up out of your slumber and your sleep now. It's time to get busy. Soon, as we're meeting here, and we're thankful to all of you that have supported our meetings here, but we have a new home. We're just fixing up. In about 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be holding our Sunday meetings in our new place. Okay? You know, and we're going to work on building. We need 300 members to pull off what we need to do here. That's a good number that the messenger gave us. And so we need 300. And they're already ready. When they attacked Mosque number 7 in 1972, they had to deal with the fruit that was at the door first, and in the hallway they were fighting and everything. But the soldiers came from the streets. Addicts, street women, everybody that loved the nation because of the work of Louis Farrakhan there in Harlem. They crowded around. Aretha Franklin came and stood by the minister's side that day. And the police couldn't even get out without a helicopter. That's how many people had crowded around. They weren't having it. Well, they said some of the messengers, soldiers was in the streets, yet they are out there for Minister Louis Farrakhan also.
Yes, sir. That's right.
The few that aren't, once we got 70% of the people or more, we're going to change that anyway.
Yes, sir.
It's not a matter of, let's see if we can talk our brothers out of killing it. You're going to stop killing. Once we have 70, 80% of the people, you're going to stop it or we're going to stop you. You're not going to get to have our women have children and you just murdering everybody in that. So, it looks nice right now. But, a time is coming where we, real men will have to take their own community. Maybe by any means necessary. We would love it to be through good teaching. I was always taught, even by Brother Collett, let's teach and reach our people. That's where we are now in this phase. But eventually, if you read through the scripture, the children of Israel wasn't taking that no more. You had an option to be with Moses or not. Once God started killing people that wasn't with Moses. Look at the book of Numbers. They took a census. They went through the nation's program. In the book of Numbers, they said, okay, we got these men. The people started acting up. He killed 14,072 of them. Moses had prayed for them. God said, no, I done had it with this group here grumbling and complaining and slack talking and backbiting and slandering and everything. Whew, 14,072 of them got taken off the nation's program just like that. I said, my God, what happened? So I thank you all for being out. Assalamu alaikum.
All praise is due to Allah. Allahu Akbar. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's give him another round of applause. Our Delaware Valley Student Regional Minister, Rodney Muhammad. Praise be to Allah. I hope that your paths ran out. As the Quran says, if all the seeds and 7 more added to it was ink and all the trees were pens, I hope you extinguish all of it because our brother really did pass a lot to us today. We thank Allah for him. Very powerful teaching. 3 questions. Number 1, how many of us believe that what they heard today is true and good for our people and all of fallen humanity? By a show of hands, praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. And my next question is how many are for their first time, second time, or maybe even we're pushing it a 3rd time today? All right, praise be to Allah, sister, brother over here. Well, how many, would you come down and shake the brother's hand who just spoke to you? That's a show just show that you enjoyed the teachings and that you actually believe what you heard today is true. He'll shake your hand, give you a salam, and on your way you can go by the grace of Allah. Come on down, our sister's coming up. She's right here. Give her a round of applause. Praise be to Allah. Our brother, would you like to come down? It's up to you. No compulsion. All right, our brother's not going to come down. Praise be to Allah. So, as that was the third question is if you believe that what you heard today is true and is good for our people, and you would like to take the next step and put your name back into the book of life. I can't say come and join on. You already a member. You just have to make it, honorary and make it right. Come and get your name put into the book of life. Because once the door closes, we can't let you in. I don't know when that's going to be. Only Allah can do that. So if there's anyone today who would like to do that, see Brother David over here to the side. If you don't want to come up front and be on Front Street, that's okay too. We can do a little more discreet. Right to the side, we have Sister Arlene standing over here. She can handle the sisters. Brother David got the brothers. We will work it that way. All right, dear family, thank you so much for being here today. We're going to move very quickly. Your time is important to us, and we know it's important to you. So the next question we're going to move to our charity portion of our meeting.